With a brief introduction, what she does, and then we'll get into the session.
Sure, thanks, Gautam. Hi, everyone. I'm Vasudha. I run the India business for InMobi. InMobi is one of the top 2 to 3 advertising platforms globally. I think globally we serve about 1.5 billion users on a monthly basis. And India alone, we touch about 125, 130 million users through our advertising platform.
Hey guys, this is Vikas. I run India operations for OnePlus. As some of you may not be familiar about OnePlus, it's a global technology startup headquartered in Shenzhen, China. We operate in the premium handset space. Today we are present in over 35 countries, but India is one of our biggest markets. We have recently launched our latest flagship device, OnePlus 3, and we sell exclusively online.
Good afternoon, Sunil Kulkarni from Oxygen. So when it comes to mobile financial services, we own the complete value chain. And when I say complete value chain, means both cash and electronic. About 200,000 outlets across the country where customer can pay cash and buy services. Customer can pay cash and convert it to digital wallet. Customer can pay cash and transfer money to a bank account. We are both B2B and B2C player, having close to 1,000 crore to 1,200 crore gross transaction value every month. So when I talk about mobile monetization, I'll be talking about not smartphone only. I'll be talking about phone per se.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Arun Gupta. I'm from Magictel. Magictel is a company who do the content and application distribution through the retail network. We are present mostly in North and some part in West and East. We are reached up to 15,000 handsets and doing almost 2 million installs every month. And because we started with the retail distribution with a mindset that still in India the 2G, the 3G and the 4G penetration is not good enough. So for the content distribution, the offline channel is critical, and that's how we build the whole channel. And we are running it for now 2.5 years, and we can claim that we are definitely one of the top 3 in the Indian market for the retail distribution. So, thank you.
Hello. Hi everyone. My name is Akrit Vaish. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Haptik. Haptik, for those of you who may not be familiar, is one of India's and one of the world's largest personal assistant apps. It's a chat-based platform. You open the app, you say you want to get something done, and then we have a combination of chat bots, which have become more popular recently, and humans that take care of the requests for you. We've been in business for about 2.5 years now. The company scaled to close to 500 people, raised multiple rounds of investment. So download the app, and then we are hiring.
So let me start with Vasudha. Vasudha, you have seen that there is a tremendous consumer engagement on the mobile platform, but the advertiser interest is low. Now, how do you think the advertiser interest will catch up, and when will it catch up to the consumer interest in terms of monetization?
Sure. Gautam, I think so if you look at just in terms of some statistics, right? So I think from a consumer interest on mobile, we're probably sitting at, 170, 180 million smartphones, and I think 2x, 3x of that number of phones overall. So from a phone penetration, it's definitely, India is one of the highest, in fact, globally in terms of absolute. And even penetration-wise, it's growing very, very fast, right? It's one of the fastest markets that we see growing in APAC, right, in terms of phone penetration. So the consumer interest is definitely there. In terms of usage patterns, we see that people on an average are now spending about, 4 to 5 hours a day on their mobile phone through various engagement models. So both the size of the base and the time spent, right? These are two metrics to say that consumer interest is definitely exploding in India. But in terms of advertiser interest, I think is where it's been under-indexed so far, right? If you see, digital spends are only about 10 to 12% of overall advertising spends, and even in that, right, mobile is a small portion today, right? Maybe only 20-25% of the digital spends. So it's definitely a single-digit number, right, in the range of 4 to 5%. So I think that's where the big gap is. So I think the catching up of that gap is probably, in my mind, would take anywhere between 2 to 3 years, right? Because it's a large gap to be bridged. And while markets like China and US are probably at their peak in terms of mobile interest and mobile consumption, I think India will still take 2 to 3 years to get there.
Sure. One question that I have observed and wanted to see your validation is that the average monetization per mobile user still seem to be in cents.
Yeah.
If you take your reach, which is globally greater than 1 billion, in India close to 170, and divide it with the monetization that you're doing across the platform, the ad monetization seems to be in the 60 to 70 cents range over a year. Do you see that increasing, and what would be the reasons for it to increase?
So I think assuming that gap that we just talked about, right, starts getting bridged and advertiser interest in mobile as a medium increases, the ARPU or the average revenue per user that you see should definitely increase. One is obviously a function of the advertising pie increasing on mobile, right? Because as more advertisers spend on mobile, that pie will increase, right, to increase the monetization. But the second is also, I think, continuous innovation on the advertising side to say, how do I make this not an irritant as an ad, but also more in the form of content consumption, engagement, right? Those kind of innovations and progress is what will actually increase your monetization at a user level, right? When you stop thinking of advertising as just something you are forced to watch versus something you would like to watch.
Sure. Great. Let me move to Akrit. Akrit, your business model is very much like WeChat, which does a monetization of about $6 per user. I'm trying to contrast that with the ad monetization. So the question is, will India ever be able to build out a WeChat which does a high level of monetization through a chat commerce?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, and that's exactly why we are in business, right? I think what we are seeing is, the market or India generally has reached the level of maturity where people are now somewhat comfortable making transactions online, making transactions on their smartphone, right? So, we are probably the only company in this entire country that has never done a cashback, ever, right? And we still do tens of thousands of transactions a month comfortably. So people, like the utility, people want to come to the platform, people are comfortable making those transactions. This would have obviously been different 2 or 3 years back, but, because there are others who develop this habit of coming, paying by credit card, paying by a wallet, there are people definitely making purchases. Now, obviously, coming to the ARPU of whatever the $6 or whatever that may be in a few years, I think there are 2 or 3 broad challenges, right? One is that compared to a WeChat, commerce in India, even then, is still very subsidized, right? Through people have developed this deal or coupon mentality, right? I mean, it's like when people think about e-commerce, mobile commerce, the first thing they think of is discounting, right? Which doesn't happen so much, let's say, in China or other places. So it's going to take some time until the market subsidizes, and there are people who are coming to mobile or online to transact, not because there's a discount, but because there's other things going on. And secondly, there is still a little hesitation in making high transaction value purchases. I think people are very comfortable making purchases for small ticket items which are sub 300 rupees, like recharge, movie ticketing, and so on. And travel, of course, is pretty big because it's only online. But online shopping, still COD is a very big component, and there's a bunch of cancellations, a lot of returns. So I think that's a broader payments problem that obviously guys like Sunil are tackling. So until that piece also gets there, but to answer the question, it will get there. There's no doubt. I think there's enough evidence that we see, everybody else is seeing, that people are comfortable transacting. It's just that a market has to eventually get there and take its time. A few more years until we see a long-term sustainable, viable business model.
Great, thanks. Vikas, let me come to you. You describe you are in the premium phone segment and primarily online. Can you help us understand what premium means and what your typical target group is?
Okay, so as smartphone industry is highly competitive, we have seen how several new brands have entered into the industry and how they have really transformed the way people used to buy phones and what value they used to get for the money that they were paying. And large part of that is because of the online. What online has done is they have changed the dynamics of the industry. It used to be a distribution game and now it has become really the pricing game. And that's why we've seen most of the new brands coming in 10 to 12 or 7 to 12,000 price segment because you're getting the best possible features in the lowest possible price. And that's what most of the brands are really targeting. Behind this volume game, there is a hope that they will have at some point of time a large user base which they can monetize through services in the future. Today that market is so small, so nobody is really thinking of monetization at the moment. The game is about the user acquisition. Now, as a new brand, as a company, we are 2-year-old globally, and in India, we are 1.5-year-old. For us, we are not in the money burning game. We are in the user acquisition game through brand promotion, through brand advocacy. And we cannot really play a volume game. We have limited resources and we have to make sure that we provide best possible experience. We are in the market to compete with Apple and Samsung and not with the Indian brands or the other Chinese brands. Our game is getting a high quality user and not really the lowest value seeking user. Right? So that's what we mean by premium handset. So we operate in the 20,000 and above, and our devices are as competitive as 50,000 and above. So if you go online, the devices that we get compared with are mostly Samsung S7, iPhone 6s, or probably HTC. Right? In terms of service, that's another thing that people care about. We provide our users a guaranteed 1-hour service turnaround time. So this is basically some of the elements that people associate with the premium handset. You will not really be expecting some of these kind of service performance from entry-level brands or from all the brands which are operating in the 10 to 15,000 segment.
Great. One of the things you are doing uniquely is you have your own operating system, which is the OnePlus operating system.
Yeah.
Can you throw some light as to what motivated you to have your own operating system, and does it tie to monetization in the long run?
Sure. So if you look at the industry in terms of monetization, the primary monetization is the hardware, and which is what we are right now focusing on. Most brands make margin on the device sale. In the entry-level segment, this margin is wafer thin, and that's why brands are competing on price. Even in the premium segment, if you're trying to provide a higher value, your price will become very competitive. Since we are a new brand, we don't charge premium for our devices, and that is one of the reasons why OnePlus devices are so popular and we've become such a big brand in such a short period of time. But from future perspective, I think monetization through services is the key. Hardware will eventually get commoditized. It will probably go a laptop route, wherein you are not really paying a premium for the hardware, but services. It's very easy to see how Apple makes money. Is the services ecosystem that they have. And to provide a better experience, to differentiate, you need to have control on the software ecosystem as well. And that is a step towards future when we have launched our own Oxygen OS, which is in-house customized Android that we have developed.
Great. Sunil, let me come to you. You are in the wallet payments business, which makes the entire thing viable. Can you describe what Oxygen does, especially the breadth and distribution network you have, and how you operate, get the money into the wallet?
Yeah, so I think those who have attended the first session, there were two key points being talked about. That, the smartphone will go down to at the most $100 or maybe $90. Jury's still out, where it will go to $50. The problem is I don't think smartphone cost. If you look at the pricing of data, today 1 GB pack for prepaid or postpaid costs something like 299 rupees or 259 rupees. For a customer who is not subscribing to, and the prepaid ARPUs are less than 100, for a customer who is not subscribing to that data, he pays pay as you go. And pay as you go price is 10 paisa per 10 KB or 1 paisa per KB. If you extrapolate that to a 1 GB price, it is 10,000 rupees. Will somebody pay that kind of price? And that's why also even on smartphone statistics is that almost 60%, you can correct me, almost 60% is Wi-Fi. It's not mobile data. Right. Now, if that being so, are we overhyping the cost of smartphone? I think we are. Cost of smartphone is only capex, and therefore telecom infrastructure has to be enabled such that pay-as-you-go becomes a portion of what your monthly subscription is. So if it is 1 paisa per KMB, it's not going to work. So what we are trying to do is the 95% cash market that is being currently served by bulk of. So the number that was talked about that time was $600 billion. That's not correct number. The correct number for India's retail payment is $1 trillion. And out of $1 trillion, 6%, as per Visa estimate, is electronic. The $960 billion is cash. Why? Because from all the 100,000 ATMs in the country, which are predominantly in urban, $500 billion is withdrawn every year. And balance $500 billion is cash withdrawal from branches, which are another 100,000. Right. But India has 650,000 villages where there is no banking facility. So what do? So you then need to go and set up payment points where you can either convert cash to service, which is mobile recharge, bill payment, utility, travel, etc., in an assisted model, because if you can't provide 1 billion smartphones, at least you can provide 650,000 smartphones to the retailer, the villages where they are being provided. So even there, let me tell you, the total retail market, urban, rural put together, is 15 million shops, of which there are 1.2 million point-of-sale terminals. The point-of-sale terminal costs between $100 to $200, depending upon whether it's a dial-up or a GPRS. Now, this 1.2 million are being installed in 600,000 locations, because there are locations where more than one terminal is there. And therefore, 14.4 million shops do not have an electronic payment mechanism. So what do? You don't have an infrastructure which can support 15 million shops, so you then go for mobile payments. The mobile payment is not meant for just consumer payment. The mobile payment, as the first session talked about UPI and Bharat Bill Payment System, is going to revolutionize the mobile payment at retail first, before it moves on to consumer. Because consumer is again the same 20 million active shoppers that the first session talked about. They will move from payment gateway to a UPI. So there are so many different payment gateways today, and UPI will become the prized user experience, where you don't have to really use your bank account ID and password, etc. You have a surrogate ID. So what we are trying to do is set up infrastructure which is to convert cash to digital. Also have B2C, which is our app, but we are, as I mentioned, we are not in the business of giving lollipops, which means we don't give cashbacks. So that is something we have constantly resisted away, and constantly making use case as a means to monetize our mobile app. So we are very focused on mobile financial services from cash and card. And card is not going to get disappeared. Card will be there. So even in Jan Dhan Yojana, there are RuPay card being issued. What is the single largest application for a point-of-sale terminal in rural area where we are deploying these point-of-sale is cash at POS. You use a card to get cash. You are not using it for any other purpose. You just use Jan Dhan account, swipe a card, and get 2,000 rupees. For that, he is traveling 50 kilometers to do that. So what we are trying to do is that even on mobile, smartphone is of course a great add to the monetization strategy. But what about USSD? What about IVR? USSD with even NPCI is going to be very disruptive for the balance 700 million mobile subscribers who do not have data capability. So when we say mobile monetization, mobile financial services becomes the key channel to penetrate the bulk of the cash market, which is waiting to be digitized as part of the digital India.
Great. Thank you. Arun, you are solving a very important problem for all app developers, which is quite unique to what the online world says. Would you like to talk more about it and explain what you do?
So, actually, let me give a little bit background. like how we evolved, how we got into this App Junction, which is an offline distribution. Like I work with the MediaTek, which is a chipset company, and we started a company which works closely with a lot of OEMs. So we have a very good understanding of the whole ecosystem, which comes up to the OEM level, that how the phone gets manufactured and then gets into the market. And during that time, we realized that there are two clear-cut segments in the market. One is, or I should say three clear-cut segments in the market. One is a feature phone segment, which is the lowest end of the handset, which Sunil also talked about, which is like 700 million users even as of today. The second segment is the smartphone segment, but that also can be divided in two parts. One is 3G to 4G users, second are 2G users. So out of the remaining 200 million so-called internet users, only 30 to 40 million users are on 3G to 4G. Rest all are on the 2G network. Now, on the 2G network, if you need to download a 100 MB game, it's mission impossible. Or even if you need to download a 20 MB application, it's mission impossible. But once you have the application on your phone, using it on a continuous basis, you can still use it with the lowest possible data of that. So what we are trying to solve there is to get that application on the phone first. And now that can be done in two ways. One is like a P2P, when I have downloaded, I have given it to my friend. And second is like a business to a user. So we started creating a retail network where we started distributing applications through the offline network. So as of today, we started with Delhi as the first one in April 2014. And actually we made the first payment in April 2014. And in last 26 months, we have gone up to Mumbai in Maharashtra, and we have gone up to Calcutta in East. And we are working with 15,000 shops and doing almost 350,000 handsets every month with 2 million plus installs. And there we are also solving sort of one more problem, because there are a lot of global brands where the application cannot be preloaded because it's difficult to go and tie up with the international brands like Samsung. So when we do a retail distribution, a lot of international brands can also be side-loaded through that system. That's number one. Second is because it's a touch point there. So when the shopkeeper is installing something in a phone, there is some physical connect is happening, and there is some sort of education also goes with that. In India there are a lot of first-time smartphone users, so they don't know also what applications to use and what applications to consume. So I think this whole offline mechanism also do some sort of an education there, where you can like sort of motivate them to start using the applications there. And I think by doing all that, it creates a well lubricated ecosystem where you are not reaching only to those 30 to 40 million users, you are reaching to the whole 200 million users there.
Akrit, let me come to you. You are in the personal assistant and chat commerce space. Now, as everyone knows, there are lots of global players in chat, which is there in the country. How do you think you can have a differentiated product and experience which can, give you a market or a niche to play in this space?
Yeah, so, the whole broader, like I said, chat commerce space has become obviously very popular in the last 6, 8, 9 months, ever since Facebook has started getting into it, Google has started getting into it. The way we sort of think about Haptik is it's a very India-focused product, right? Everything that we do in terms of what we're trying to build from a business model perspective, use case perspective, all the things that we're going to do inside are going to be very tailored towards, what Indian users want and how sort of, they like to get things done. That's basically a simple answer versus the global companies who are more focused on, a global platform-like strategy. The whole idea behind a personal assistant is personalizing the experience, right? And we 100% believe, based upon everything that we see, that the way people or consumers in India transact or the way they want to get things done, cash economy being a great example, is very different from anywhere in the world. So those are really the big ways in which we're going to differentiate. Also, business models need to be innovated, right? The standard business model is, you do commerce, you do transaction, and then make a certain % of all of the orders that are flowing through your platform. But one of the things that we're thinking about is, okay, look, what are the different ways in we can do this? Is there some kind of native ad integration, right? Stuff that companies like InMobi have been doing a lot of, which is not necessarily standard banner ads or standard full screen ads, but more integrated inside the experience itself. Which is, let's say someone just completed a chat, could you send him a message 10 minutes later saying that, hey, if you're interested in this, why don't you go tap here? That becomes very powerful as a native ad integration. So those are various sort of types of things that are very applicable only in the Indian context, and someone sitting only over here can actually crack that.
Vasudha, let me come to you. You have been pioneers in the ad tech space, and you were one of the companies which went global very early. Can you tell us what was the monetization impact or difference between global mobile monetization and the India mobile monetization from your perspective?
Sure. So I think for us, what we've seen is that, if we take maybe US as a representation of the Western markets, China separately because it's just very different in APAC, and India, right? What we've seen is that US typically, one is that, in terms of the ad monetization models itself, they're always sort of, the first to adopt new things, right? So whether it was native advertising or video advertising, they've been sort of the first to adopt these. And that itself makes a difference in the monetization levels, right? Because what you see on a traditional banner or full screen versus some of these advanced advertising formats is very different. So that itself creates a 2 to 3 times, a difference between the monetization levels. And then US, just because of, the ARPU or, the average revenue per user being higher, another probably 2 times or 3 times gets added. So I would say between India and US, there is almost, 5 to 6 times a difference that we see in terms of monetization. Sure. China, on the other hand, what we've seen is that in certain segments, it's much up there compared to even US at times, because at least for us, and that could be different for others, is that it's a very also iOS heavy market, right? So the dimension of OS comes in there, where what we are seeing is that because India is like 85-90% Android versus China, which is 90% iOS, at least for us, that makes again a 2 to 3 times difference, right? So I think both the forms of advertising and even the difference in the OS adoption, the kind of devices, makes a huge difference in the monetization levels that we see.
Sure. So I had a quick question. So to Gautam's point, so let's say between US, China and India, if US is, let's say, $10 in terms of monetization, what would China be and where would India be?
So for the same ad format, probably China would be in the range of, $7-8 even, and India would be like 2 or 3. Like I'm saying, let's say you take video as an example, right? Because we see north of $10, $12 on video in US. China will be 7-8, but India will be 2 or 3. So there's really a huge gap as of today.
Sure. I have a follow-up question. Again, to your ad tech stack. As some of the larger global companies are building out their walled gardens, a lot of ad tech companies in the US is feeling a lot of pressure. Right. Because they are being moved out of the value chain. How is InMobi reacting to that?
So I think walled garden is the right term. So we call the other side the wild garden. So I think on the wild garden side, the way we are looking at things is to also see where we can create a stronghold or a niche, right? Similar to what he shared on the haptic side and how he's combating the global players. I think for us, we're trying to see, one is how do we create a stronghold in certain markets which have done well for us, where we have, say, already a headway, right? For example, China, right? China is a huge market for us, and we do have a very strong sort of 2-year, 3-year, ahead in China. So one is creating a stronghold in certain large markets. And the second is picking on, 2 or 3 sort of products or expertise where we can really go deep, right? So whether that is native or whether that is video, and now for us, for example, remarketing, right? So we are trying to pick on 2-3 things where we can go really deep, along with the region combination, and try to sort of, combat the entire thing.
Right. One of the other things I noticed, because of the walled gardens, a lot of agencies are a lot more, they have been squeezed out as well of the money chain, and that is helping the rest of the publishers. The better alignment with agencies in terms of monetization.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
I think we're just starting to. I mean, I won't say that I've seen that a lot yet. But I agree that the whole walled garden approach does create a lot of monetization squeeze for a lot of players in the ecosystem. I think the good part is it also pushes others to one, innovate and then also create efficiencies, right? Because I think some of these things are also good in a way, right? So we're also seeing a lot of push, that's why on things like programmatic, right? Which is more basically efficient media buying or ad buying. And even for us, that's starting to pick up a lot again in the US. Sure. So we are seeing some movements on those lines to try to basically innovate, create efficiencies, which will sort of compete with the whole walled garden approach.
Sure. Because as you are into the operating system, trying to capture the higher value elements of the experience, do you see a higher monetization because of operating system investment that you are doing?
I think in long-term perspective, platform play will always have higher returns, but it's a very risky game and it's a 10-year play. It's not easy to become a platform player. You have to have really dominant market share. A good example is iOS, but after iOS there is no second big player other than Android, but Android is again an open source. So to reach that iOS level, you have to make a lot of sacrifices, and that's what we are really trying to do. Just contrasting it with the entry-level players, they have kind of saturated their potential, right? And to get that extra revenue, they are doing a lot of pre-installs, which allows them to keep their price low and get money from some other channel, right? Similar in the future, when the market becomes saturated, you will be competing on the software services. And as a device manufacturer, you are controlling the entire experience. This walled garden thing can only be done by an operating system player, right? So Apple does it, and it kind of closed doors for a lot of publishers. I remember when the Apple announced that news, I got a message from next day from one of the leading technology blog in the country, and they were really worried because they were the first ones who will get impacted because their revenue comes only from ads. But in terms of overall industry, I think ad revenue will continue to grow. It's just that the weaker players may move out and more innovative ad formats will come. Ad industry has been around for decades, and I don't think it's going to change so soon. People love to consume free content, and somebody has to pay the bill. So ad will stay, it's just the format will change. As a device owner, you would have a bigger play. For Apple, it's really easy to run as many ads as they want, making sure that the user experience do not get compromised. Right? So if you are in the premium space, you care more about the experience, and I think that's the right strategy from a platform player perspective, that you make sure all those flash, banner, pop-ups, all those kind of ads are blocked. But if some ad is really rich format, immersive, product placement, those ads can continue to come, and I think nobody would really care about those ads.
Okay, great. Sunil, you have been in the payments business for a long time and have a lot of experience. What do you think IMPS impact will be on the ecosystem?
So I think if you look at IMPS or UPI for that matter, UPI runs on IMPS rails. It is actually IMPS, but it is running on that. And in the next 9 to 12 months, there is going to be, I think there was some term used by Srivatsa, some stack. What was that stack? India Stack, yeah. So India Stack, along with UPI, and that's why it was being talked about, innovation over innovation. So on the handset side, you have today, first thing is that what mobile device manufacturers are trying to do, where they are trying to use iris scan as the means to do single click, which means you just look at the phone and it's single click. I know it is Gautam, and Gautam is using his handset, and no passwords are required. So when it comes to the mobile, it is only using the camera, and it is having a infrared LED, and the cost of that Nandan has promised me almost 1.5 years back in a UPI conference that it will be available for $5. Okay. So when you get $5 a single click authentication, you can imagine what it will do to B2C and what it will do to B2B in the retail. The other one is that GSM Association is trying to do that. We are getting one from every manufacturer, the mobile number, the IMEI number, the SIM IMSI, and the entire information is flowing through the GPRS or 3G phone. So we can have a registry like anybody else, and that becomes a single click transaction. You don't even need any further transaction. So making the user experience almost like when you are giving 500 rupees to a shopkeeper, he is instantly recognizing 500 rupees. He is not using user ID, password and second factor password, etc. So the entire business of UPI, IMPS, India Stack, etc. is to make the payment experience as if you are giving 500 rupee note, which is instantly recognized by the retailer without having too many bells and whistles attached to the security process. You are building security such that it is still user friendly.
Great, thank you. Arun, just a last question before we open up for questions. So if you look at what Google is pushing, they are pushing for progressive web pages, and there are lots of app developers who are moving to, and Flipkart is a good early adopter, who has moved to progressive web pages, which doesn't require an installation of an app, in the basic sense. Do you think these kinds of initiatives can disrupt your model?
Yes and no, actually. The technology will keep evolving, and maybe the app becomes, as you said, like some other technology. But widget. There are a lot of things, and even there are deep integrations happening in the phone where the news get read in the alarm itself. There are a lot of integrations are happening where you don't need a separate app, and it is becoming a part of the whole deep integration and giving a unified experience. But I think still there are millions of applications, those are there in the market, and what all can be done by this is only by some top 50, 100, maybe 1,000 players. But this whole things will shift maybe towards that, but it will take its own time. And from our angle, what we are giving is, we have found a gap in the market where we are saying that the user who is not well connected should be able to connect to the digital world. So it's more like, you can say, an O2O thing which we are doing.
Right.
So if the technology evolves, we as a company also need to evolve around that. And I can give you one example that in last 6 months or so, the capital market has sort of eroded a lot of money, and not too many application companies are getting funded. So earlier, getting an application company for offline distribution was simpler, but now it is tough. But it is giving also an opportunity that we can do a lot of targeted bombing or a carpet bombing in a smaller carpet, that only X kind of device in an X city can get a download through our system. So I think the business has to evolve with the technology, and we also have to evolve with the system.
Sure. We are out of time, but we are happy to take questions offline, and would love to answer anything that you want to follow up. You have been a great audience. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, organizers. And let's not delay the lunch. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You've been really very informative panelists. Thank you for sharing your insights, and thank you to all of you also for being with us. We now break for lunch. 40 minutes of lunch break.